Dr. Daniel Cross, 42 years old, emergency physician and single father, had just been terminated during his final shift at Riverside City Medical Center. No arguments, no pleading, just silently taking his daughter Lily's small hand and walking out into the harsh midday sun. They walked home on foot. Then the ground began to shake. The sound of rotors tore through the sky. 2 military helicopters descended low, diving straight toward the park ahead of them. An officer jumped out, shouting above the stunned crowd. "Where's the doctor? We need Dr. Cross now." The Human Resources Office at Riverside City Medical Center had always felt sterile. Not in the medical sense. Daniel had spent 15 years working in truly sterile environments. This was the cold sterility of corporate bureaucracy, where decisions about human lives were reduced to line items on spreadsheets. Melissa Grant sat across from him, her expression professionally neutral, the kind of face that had delivered bad news 1,000 times without losing sleep over it. "Dr. Cross, effective immediately, your employment with Riverside City Medical Center is terminated." Daniel didn't flinch. His hands remained still on his lap, fingers interlaced. Through the office window, he could see Lily sitting in the hallway, swinging her legs from a chair too tall for her 7-year-old frame. She was drawing something in her notebook, oblivious. The reasons are documented here. Melissa slid a manila folder across the desk. Repeated insubordination, failure to align with departmental cost reduction initiatives, creating a hostile work environment through confrontational behavior toward administrative staff. Each word was carefully chosen. Legal. Defensible. "You mean I refuse to use expired defibrillator pads," Daniel said quietly, "and I reported that 3 of our trauma bays have ventilators that fail calibration. You refused to follow the replacement schedule approved by the medical board. The replacement schedule that pushes equipment 2 years past manufacturer recommendations." Melissa's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Dr. Cross, this hospital serves a community of 300,000 people. We have budget constraints. We have regulatory requirements. We have a board of directors who must balance quality care with financial sustainability. And I have patients who die when equipment fails. No patient has died due to equipment failure in this hospital. Not yet." The silence stretched between them. Outside, Lily had abandoned her drawing and was now pressing her face against the window, watching sparrows fight over crumbs in the courtyard below. Melissa leaned forward slightly. "You're a talented physician, Dr. Cross. No one disputes that. But talent doesn't exist in a vacuum. Hospitals are complex organizations. They require teamwork, compromise, and understanding that sometimes we gamble with lives to save money." "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant." Melissa sat back, her professional mask firmly in place. "Your final paycheck will include accrued vacation time. Your health insurance will continue through the end of the month. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings." Daniel stood. He didn't argue, didn't threaten to call a lawyer or go to the media. He simply nodded once, then walked to the door. "Dr. Cross." Melissa's voice stopped him. "For what it's worth, I do understand why you did what you did, but understanding doesn't change the outcome." He turned back. "No, it doesn't." The security escort was unnecessary, and they both knew it. Daniel Cross wasn't the type to cause a scene. The young guard, Marcus, according to his badge, walked 3 paces behind as Daniel cleaned out his locker in the physician's lounge. It didn't take long. 15 years reduced to a cardboard box, a spare stethoscope, 3 medical textbooks with cracked spines, a framed photo of Lily taken on her first day of kindergarten, a coffee mug that said, "World's Okayest Dad." Dr. Patricia Reeves looked up from her lunch as Daniel closed his locker for the last time. She'd worked alongside him for 8 years. They'd saved lives together, lost patients together, survived 36-hour shifts on nothing but coffee and dark humor. "Danny," her voice cracked slightly, It's done, Trish. It's not done. We're writing a letter, the whole department. We're going to the board. Don't. Daniel shifted the box to his other hip. Don't make this harder on yourself. They want an example. They got one. So you're just going to walk away? I'm going to take my daughter home. Patricia stood, abandoning her salad. You saved 17 lives last month. 17, I counted. That gunshot victim with the ruptured spleen, you kept him alive for 2 hours until the OR opened up. The allergic reaction in the parking lot, you had her breathing again in 90 seconds. The kid who coded 3 times. Trish, you brought him back every single time. And they're firing you because you won't use defective equipment? Daniel met her eyes. I'm not the first person to lose a job for doing the right thing. I won't be the last. What are you going to do? Find another job. Keep Lily fed. Keep moving forward. You have recommendations? References? I'll figure it out. Patricia grabbed a sticky note from the counter and scribbled her personal number on it. You call me. Anytime. Day or night. You need anything? A reference? A shoulder? Someone to watch? Lily, you call me. Daniel took the note, tucked it into his shirt pocket. Thanks, Trish. I mean it, Danny. You're not alone in this. But, as he walked out of the lounge, box under his arm, he felt profoundly alone. The familiar halls of Riverside City Medical Center suddenly felt foreign. Hostile. Every person he passed seemed to look away, unable or unwilling to meet his eyes. Lily was still in the hallway outside HR, now talking animatedly with a janitor about his floor buffer. She looked up when she saw Daniel, her face brightening instantly. Daddy, Mr. Raymond says his machine can polish a whole floor in 15 minutes. Isn't that cool? Very cool, pumpkin. Daniel nodded to Raymond, who tipped his cap in silent acknowledgement. Ready to go home? Are you done with your meeting? All done. Can we get ice cream? Daniel thought about his bank account. Thought about the mortgage payment due in 12 days. Thought about how long he could stretch his savings if he didn't find work immediately. Sure, kiddo, we can get ice cream. Lily took his free hand, skipping alongside him as they walked toward the exit. She didn't notice the cardboard box, didn't notice the security guard trailing them, didn't notice her father's jaw clenched tight enough to ache. They pushed through the main doors into the afternoon heat. The sun was merciless, bouncing off the parking lot asphalt in shimmering waves. Where's the car, Daddy? We're going to walk today. Really? It's so hot. I know. But it's only 2 miles. We can handle it. Lily considered this, then shrugged. Okay. Can I hold the box? It's too heavy for you. I can help. I know you can, pumpkin. But I've got it. They walked. The walk home took them through the older part of the city, where buildings still had cornerstones dated from the 1922s, and trees grew thick enough to provide occasional shade. Daniel adjusted the box on his hip, feeling sweat soak through his shirt. Lily chattered about her day at school, something about a science project involving beans and cotton balls, but Daniel's mind was elsewhere. Mosul, 2011. The field hospital had been little more than reinforced tents and prayer. He'd been Captain Cross then, 30 years old and convinced he could save the world one traumatic injury at a time. They'd operated under conditions that would horrify any civilian physician. Limited supplies, sporadic power, temperatures reaching 120 degrees, and the constant percussion of artillery in the distance. He'd been good at it. Thrived, even. When chaos erupted around him, something in Daniel's mind clicked into crystalline focus. Hands steady, thoughts clear, every movement purposeful. Daddy, are you listening? Daniel blinked back to the present. Sorry, pumpkin. I asked if you think my bean will grow faster than Emma's. Definitely. Your bean is clearly superior. Lily giggled. You can't know that. You haven't even seen it. Don't need to. I have faith in your agricultural skills. They passed Moretti's bakery, where the smell of fresh bread wafted through the open door. Daniel's stomach reminded him that he'd skipped lunch. Dinner would be whatever was left in the refrigerator, probably eggs and toast. Kandahar, 2012. The convoy had hit an IED 30 kilometers from the base. 6 casualties, 3 critical. The medevac had mechanical issues. Daniel and his team worked for 4 hours in the back of an armored vehicle, performing emergency procedures that shouldn't have been possible in those conditions. They'd saved 4, lost 2. One of the lost had been 19 years old. Private First Class Jacob Matthews, from a small town in Oregon. He'd shown Daniel pictures of his girlfriend the week before. They were planning to get married when his deployment ended. Daniel had held pressure on a femoral artery torn beyond repair, watching the life drain from Matthew's eyes while knowing there was nothing more he could do. Not there. Not with what they had. "Daddy, you're squeezing my hand too tight. Sorry." Daniel relaxed his grip. "Sorry, Lily. It's okay." "Are you thinking about work?" "Something like that. Do doctors think about work a lot?" "Some do. Do you?" Daniel looked down at his daughter. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, revealing the spray of freckles across her nose that she'd inherited from her mother. Sarah had died when Lily was 18 months old. Stroke. Sudden. Unfair in the way that death so often is. "I think about what matters," Daniel said. "And what matters most is making sure you're safe and happy." "I'm happy, Daddy." "Good. Are you?" The question landed with unexpected weight. Daniel shifted the box again, buying time. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that happiness is complicated? That satisfaction comes from doing work that matters, even when that work costs you everything? "I'm working on it, Pumpkin." They turned onto Maple Street, their own neighborhood now. Small houses with small yards. An ice cream truck played its tinny melody 3 blocks away. Normal. Safe. So different from the world Daniel had left behind when he'd resigned his commission. The decision to leave the military had been immediate and absolute. He'd been overseas when Sarah died. Hadn't been there when she collapsed in the grocery store. Hadn't been there when Lily cried for her mama in a hospital room. Hadn't been there when his infant daughter needed him most. He'd resigned within the week. Took his medical degree and his trauma experience and buried himself in civilian emergency medicine. Chose a hospital where he could work regular shifts and be home every night. Chose a life where Lily would never wonder where her only remaining parent had gone. But he'd brought something back with him. A line he wouldn't cross. A principle he couldn't compromise. Never gamble with lives to save money. It's what had ended his career today. "Daddy, there's your phone ringing." Daniel stopped walking, fished his phone from his pocket. Unknown number. "Hello, Dr. Cross? This is Lieutenant Colonel Victor Brennan, United States Army Medical Command." Daniel's spine straightened automatically. "Colonel, I understand you've recently left your position at Riverside City Medical Center. News travels fast. In certain circles, yes. Dr. Cross, I'll be direct. We have a situation developing and your particular skill set has been flagged as critical. Would you be available for immediate consultation?" Daniel looked at Lily, who was trying to eavesdrop on the conversation. "Colonel, I appreciate the contact, but I'm no longer military. I haven't taken a military consult in 5 years. I'm aware." "This isn't a standard consult. Then what is it? I'd prefer to discuss details in person." "Are you currently at home?" Something in the colonel's voice triggered Daniel's threat assessment instincts. What kind of situation are we talking about? The kind that requires a trauma surgeon with combat field experience and specialized training in thoracic emergencies under adverse conditions. "Your name appeared on a very short list, Dr. Cross. Actually, it's the entire list. There are other surgeons with combat experience, not with your specific qualifications, and not available in our current time frame." Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose. "Colonel, I have my daughter with me. I'm not equipped to. Where are you right now?" "Physically, 2 blocks from home, walking down Maple Street. There was muffled conversation on the other end of the line. Then, "Stay where you are. We're coming to you. Colonel." The line went dead. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy? Who was that?" "Someone from my old job." "Your army job?" "Yeah. Are you going back to the army?" "No, Pumpkin, I'm not." But even as he said it, Daniel felt the familiar weight settling over his shoulders. The weight of duty, of being needed, of having skills that could save a life. He'd felt this weight for most of his adult life. "Come on," he said to Lily. "Let's keep walking." They made it another block before Daniel heard it, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The sound grew louder. Daniel stopped walking, his head tilting automatically to track the source. Years of military conditioning didn't fade just because you hung up the uniform. "Daddy, is that a helicopter?" "Two of them," Daniel said, his eyes scanning the sky. They appeared from the east, flying low. Too low for casual traffic. These weren't news choppers or medical transports making routine runs. These were military Blackhawks, and they were coming in fast. Daniel's heart rate kicked up. Not panic, his body didn't remember how to panic, but a heightened state of readiness. His free hand automatically moved to Lily's shoulder, positioning himself between her and the approaching aircraft. "Why are they so loud?" Lily pressed her hands over her ears. The helicopters banked hard, losing altitude rapidly. Daniel's combat instincts screamed warnings. This was an emergency landing protocol, the kind you used when every second mattered. They were heading for Hawthorne Memorial Park, directly ahead of them. "Lily, stay close to me." People emerged from houses and shops, pointing at the sky. Cars pulled over. Within seconds, a crowd began forming at the park's edge, everyone drawn to the spectacle of military helicopters descending into their quiet neighborhood. The first Black Hawk touched down on the park's central green, rotor wash flattening the grass in a wide circle. The second landed 30 yards away. Before the rotors even began to slow, the side doors slid open. 4 personnel jumped out from the first helicopter, 3 in military fatigues, 1 in tactical medical gear. From the second came 2 more soldiers and what looked like a stretcher team. Daniel's eyes caught the insignia on the nearest soldier's uniform. Army Medical Command, Critical Care Air Transport Team. This wasn't a drill. An officer, the bars on his collar marked him as a lieutenant, jogged toward the crowd, his gaze sweeping faces. Behind him, the medical team was already unloading equipment, moving with the urgent precision of people racing against time. The lieutenant cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted over the rotor noise. "We're looking for Dr. Daniel Cross. Is Dr. Daniel Cross here?" The crowd murmured, confused. Someone pointed vaguely toward the residential streets. "We need Dr. Cross immediately. This is a medical emergency." Daniel felt dozens of eyes turn toward him. He stood there, still holding his cardboard box of personal belongings, his daughter's hand in his, looking like exactly what he was, a fired employee walking home with his kid. The lieutenant's eyes locked onto him. "Dr. Cross?" Daniel nodded once. The lieutenant's relief was palpable. He spoke rapidly into his radio. Located, moving now, then jogged toward Daniel, the rest of his team following. "Dr. Cross, I'm Lieutenant Marcus Hayes. We have a critical trauma situation requiring immediate surgical intervention. The patient can't be moved to a hospital facility. We need you, sir." Daniel's mind processed this information in rapid sequence. Critical trauma, can't move to hospital, requires his specific skills. What's the nature of the injury? Thoracic trauma with suspected cardiac tamponade. Patient is 32-year-old male, vitals unstable. We've got maybe 30 minutes before... Where is he? Airborne. En route from a classified location. ETA 7 minutes. Daniel's combat medicine training kicked in automatically, overriding every other thought. Cardiac tamponade. Fluid compressing the heart. Fatal without immediate intervention. If they were bringing the patient to him instead of taking him to a hospital, That meant standard trauma centers either couldn't help or couldn't be reached in time. What's your equipment status? Full field surgical kit, Class 3. We have a cardiac surgeon standing by on video, but the hands-on work needs someone with field experience. Yes, sir. Daniel looked at Lily, who was staring up at him with wide eyes. Then he looked past the lieutenant to see someone else approaching through the crowd. Melissa Grant stood at the park's edge, her professional composure completely shattered. She must have followed them from the hospital, or been in the area, or it didn't matter. What mattered was the expression on her face. Shock, confusion, and dawning realization. She'd fired him 3 hours ago. Now the military was calling his name. Daniel turned back to Lieutenant Hayes. I need someone to take my daughter home, someone I trust. Sir, we can arrange. Trish, Daniel called out, spotting Dr. Patricia Reeves in the growing crowd. She must have left the hospital right after he did. Trish, I need you. Patricia pushed through the onlookers, her eyes taking in the scene with quick understanding. Danny, what the hell? Can you take Lily? Get her home? Stay with her until I'm back? Patricia's training kicked in. No questions, no delays. Absolutely. Daniel knelt down to Lily's level. Pumpkin, I need you to go with Dr. Reeves for a little while, okay? But Daddy, remember what we talked about how sometimes doctors have to help people even when it's not convenient. Lily nodded, her eyes filling with tears she was trying hard not to shed. This is one of those times. Someone is very sick, and I'm the only one who can help them. Do you understand? Will you come home? I promise. As soon as I can. Do you have to go on the helicopter? Yeah, Pumpkin. I do. Lily threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. Daniel hugged her back, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, grounding himself in this moment before stepping back into the world of combat medicine. I love you, Lily. I love you too, Daddy. Be safe. Patricia took Lily's hand. Come on, sweetie. We'll make popcorn and watch movies until your dad gets back. As Patricia led Lily away, Daniel stood and turned to Lieutenant Hayes. I need to see your equipment manifest, and I need to know everything about this patient mechanism of injury, current vitals, treatment rendered so far. Sir, we can brief you en route. Brief me now. I need to know what I'm walking into. Hayes gestured toward the helicopter, but before they could move, Melissa Grant stepped into Daniel's path. Dr. Cross, her voice was strained. I don't understand what's happening. Daniel met her eyes. Someone needs a trauma surgeon with combat field experience. Apparently, I'm the only one available. But she caught herself. I mean, I didn't know you had military. There's a lot you don't know, Miss Grant. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a patient. He moved past her without another word. The inside of the Black Hawk was exactly as Daniel remembered. Cramped, loud, utilitarian. Every surface was metal or high-impact plastic, designed for function over comfort. The smell hit him immediately, a mixture of fuel, disinfectant, and the particular metallic tang of medical equipment. Lieutenant Hayes handed him a tablet showing the patient file. Daniel scanned it rapidly, his brain automatically cataloging the critical details. Senator's son? Daniel looked up sharply. Senator Marcus Thornton's son, yes, sir. The patient is Deputy Director of the NSA's Cybersecurity Division, and he's injured how? Hayes glanced at the other personnel in the helicopter before answering. Training accident at a classified facility. We can't provide more detail than that. Daniel's jaw tightened. A training accident at a classified facility could mean anything from a vehicle rollover to an explosion. The vagueness told him this was politically sensitive. What matters, Hayes continued, is that he took significant blunt force trauma to the chest. Initial assessment suggests cardiac tamponade, possibly with rib fractures and pulmonary contusion. Vitals? BP dropping. 70/40 when we last checked. Heart rate elevated at 130. Respirations labored at 30 per minute. He's conscious but deteriorating. Daniel's hands moved automatically, checking the surgical kit laid out on the helicopter's bench. Scalpels, retractors, suction, chest tubes, pericardiocentesis, needles, cardiac repair supplies. It was good equipment, better than what he'd had in Afghanistan. "Who's your cardiac specialist on video?" "Dr. Elena Vasquez, Walter Reed. She's standing by." Daniel nodded. "And your medical team?" "Corpsman Rodriguez and Corpsman Chen. Both have advanced trauma life support certification." "Combat experience?" "Rodriguez did 2 tours. Chen is newer, but she's solid." The helicopter lifted off smoothly, the park dropping away beneath them. Through the open door, Daniel could see Melissa Grant standing alone in the dispersing crowd, watching them rise into the sky. He turned away from the door, focusing entirely on the mission ahead. "Talk to me about the tamponade. How was it diagnosed?" Hayes pulled up ultrasound images on the tablet. "Field assessment using portable fast exam. You can see the fluid accumulation here." He pointed to the dark area surrounding the heart. "It's putting pressure on the cardiac chambers." Daniel studied the image. The pericardial effusion was significant. If left untreated, the patient would go into cardiac arrest within the hour. The procedure to fix it, pericardiocentesis, or emergency pericardial window, required steady hands, precise anatomical knowledge, and experience working under pressure. Literally working under the pressure of a damaged heart fighting to beat against fluid compression. "ETA to patient?" Daniel asked. 4 minutes. Daniel closed his eyes, running through the procedure in his mind. Every step, every potential complication, every backup plan if something went wrong. This was what he'd been trained for. This was what he was good at. This was why they'd come for him. Dr. Cross. Rodriguez, the more experienced corpsman, leaned forward. "Sir, I served under Colonel Brennan in Iraq. He spoke highly of your work at the Kandahar Field Hospital." Daniel opened his eyes. "That was a long time ago. Skill like yours doesn't expire, sir." "We'll find out." The helicopter banked hard, changing direction. Hayes pressed his hand to his earpiece, listening to radio traffic. "Patient transport is 2 minutes out. We're going to rendezvous at an altitude of 1,500 feet. We're doing this airborne?" Daniel asked. "The patient can't land. He's aboard a helicopter that's experiencing mechanical issues. Landing would put him at risk of additional trauma." Daniel processed this. They wanted him to perform emergency cardiac surgery while both helicopters were in flight, maintaining formation. It was insane. It was also exactly the kind of scenario his military training had prepared him for. "Equipment transfer protocol?" Daniel asked. "We'll match speed and altitude. They'll move the patient to our aircraft using a stabilized stretcher system. Once he's aboard, we maintain level flight while you work. Weather conditions? Clear skies, minimal wind. We've got a 20-minute window before conditions deteriorate." Daniel looked out the door at the darkening sky. Storm clouds were building to the west, moving in faster than the forecasts had predicted. "We need to work fast," he said. "Yes, sir." The second helicopter appeared ahead of them, flying steady. Daniel could see the patient through its open door, a figure strapped to a stretcher, surrounded by medical personnel. The 2 aircraft closed the distance, their pilots communicating constantly to maintain perfect formation. This was precision flying at its most demanding. "Prepare for transfer," Hayes called out. The corpsman moved into position. Daniel stepped back, giving them room to work. He watched as the stretcher system engaged, cables extending from one helicopter to the other. The patient was moved across the gap. For 30 seconds, a human life hung suspended between 2 aircraft, 1,500 feet above the ground, dependent entirely on equipment and skill and coordination. Then the stretcher was inside, locked into position, and Daniel was moving forward. His hands went to the patient's neck, checking pulse, weak and thready. The man's face was pale, lips slightly blue. He was conscious, but clearly in distress. "I'm Dr. Cross," Daniel said, his voice calm and steady. I'm going to fix this. Stay with me." The patient's eyes focused on him, desperate and pleading. Daniel turned to the corpsman. "Rodriguez, establish 2 large-bore IVs. Chen, prepare the ultrasound and get me current cardiac views. Hayes, connect me to Dr. Vasquez." Everyone moved. Daniel pulled on sterile gloves, his movements automatic. The helicopter swayed slightly in a crosswind, and he adjusted his stance without thinking, his body remembering how to work in motion. A screen flickered to life, showing Dr. Elena Vasquez's face. She was in her 60s, with steel gray hair and the confident bearing of someone who'd saved thousands of lives. "Dr. Cross, I'm seeing the patient's vitals now. We're running out of time." "Agreed. I'm going to perform a pericardiocentesis under ultrasound guidance. If that doesn't resolve the tamponade, we move to a pericardial window." In a helicopter. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. "Then I picked the right surgeon. Let's save this man's life." Daniel looked down at his patient, then out the open helicopter door at the ground far below. 3 hours ago, he'd been fired for caring too much about patient safety. Now he was about to perform emergency cardiac surgery in the least safe environment imaginable. The irony wasn't lost on him, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the man on the stretcher in front of him, whose heart was fighting to beat against impossible pressure. "Chen, give me the ultrasound probe." She handed it to him. Daniel pressed it against the patient's chest, watching the screen, finding the exact angle he needed. 18-gauge needle. "Rodriguez." The needle appeared in his hand. The helicopter hit a pocket of turbulence. Daniel didn't flinch. His hand was perfectly steady. He positioned the needle against skin and began to advance it, millimeter by millimeter, toward a heart that was running out of time. The needle slid forward through layers of tissue, guided by the ultrasound image on the screen. Daniel's entire world contracted to the space between his fingertips and the patient's pericardium. Nothing else existed. Not the helicopter, not the altitude, not the career that had ended this morning. Just the needle, just the heart. "Angle's good," Dr. Vasquez confirmed through the video link. "You're approaching the pericardial space." The patient gasped, his eyes wide with pain and fear. "Stay still," Daniel said softly. "I know it hurts, but movement right now could be very bad for both of us." Rodriguez kept his hands on the patient's shoulders, providing gentle but firm stability. Chen monitored vitals, calling out numbers in a steady cadence. BP 70/38. Heart rate 142. The helicopter dipped slightly. Daniel felt the motion in his bones, his body automatically compensating for the shift. Years of field surgery had taught him to work with turbulence, not against it. The needle tip appeared on the ultrasound screen, a bright white point advancing toward the dark fluid surrounding the heart. "Almost there," Daniel murmured. Then resistance, then release. He was in. "I've got fluid. Start aspiration." Chen attached the syringe, and Daniel began to withdraw. Blood-tinged fluid appeared in the chamber, pulled out by steady pressure. 10 milliliters. 20. 40. Heart rate decreasing, Chen reported. 135. 128. The patient's breathing eased slightly. Color began returning to his lips. 60 milliliters. 80. BP rising. 85/45. Daniel continued to aspirate, his eyes locked on the ultrasound screen. The dark space around the heart was shrinking as fluid was removed, allowing the cardiac chambers to expand properly. 100 milliliters. Heart rate stabilizing at 115, Chen said. BP 90/50. Dr. Vasquez's voice came through the speaker. "Beautiful work, Dr. Cross. The compression is resolving." "How does the patient look?" Daniel pulled the needle out slowly, applying pressure to the insertion site. The patient's eyes had cleared slightly, his breathing more controlled. "Better," Daniel said. "But we're not done." He pressed the ultrasound probe against different angles, checking for complications. There, a small tear in the pericardium, still seeping fluid. Not immediately life-threatening, but problematic. Rodriguez, I need to do a limited pericardial window. Prep a surgical field. Sir, we're at altitude. I know where we are, Corpman. Prep the field. Rodriguez and Chen moved with efficient synchronization, draping sterile cloths, arranging instruments, setting up lighting. They'd done this before in difficult circumstances. They knew the drill. Daniel made a small incision below the patient's sternum, working quickly but precisely. Every movement was economical, no wasted motion. This was surgery stripped to its essential elements: identify the problem, fix the problem, close. The helicopter hit another patch of turbulence. Daniel's hands didn't waver. He created a small opening in the pericardium, allowing the remaining fluid to drain into the pleural space where it could be absorbed naturally. He examined the cardiac surface directly, checking for injuries that the ultrasound might have missed. There, a small contusion on the right ventricle. Bruised, but not torn. It would heal on its own with supportive care. We're good, Daniel said. Close it up. He placed a small drainage tube, then began suturing the incision. His fingers moved in the familiar rhythm of closing. Knot, advance, knot, advance. Each stitch placed with the same precision as the last. Vitals? He asked. BP 95/52, Chen reported. Heart rate 105. Respirations 24. Oxygen saturation 94%. Better, but not great. Start him on supplemental oxygen and let's get some fluid volume on board. 2 liters of Ringer's lactate, wide open. The patient coughed, his hand weakly reaching for Daniel's arm. Hey, Daniel said, meeting his eyes. You're going to be okay. We're heading to Walter Reed now. They'll take good care of you. My father, the patient whispered. Senator Thornton has been notified. He'll meet you at the hospital. The patient nodded slightly, then closed his eyes. Exhaustion finally overwhelming the adrenaline that had kept him conscious. Daniel stepped back, stripping off his gloves. His hands were covered in blood, his shirt soaked with sweat. He felt the familiar post-surgery tremor starting in his fingers, the body's way of releasing tension after extreme focus. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the screen again. Dr. Cross, that was exceptional work. Your credentials indicated you were skilled, but seeing it in action is something else entirely. Thank you, doctor. Where did you train? Johns Hopkins for medical school. Trauma surgery fellowship at Shock Trauma in Baltimore. Then, 5 years as a forward surgical team commander in Afghanistan and Iraq. And currently? Daniel hesitated. Currently unemployed. Dr. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. That's going to change? I guarantee it. Lieutenant Hayes approached, his expression a mixture of relief and respect. Dr. Cross, the pilot confirms, we have clearance for a direct approach to Walter Reed. ETA, 15 minutes. Daniel nodded, then moved back to the patient to check his vitals one more time. Pulse was stronger. Color was better. The immediate crisis had passed. He'd done what he came to do. Through the helicopter's door, he could see the lights of the city spreading below them. Somewhere down there, Lily was eating popcorn with Patricia, probably asking 100 questions about where her daddy had gone and when he would be back. Somewhere down there, Melissa Grant was probably still trying to understand what had just happened. Somewhere down there, Daniel's life was waiting to figure out what came next. But up here, at 1,500 feet, with a patient stabilized and a mission completed, Daniel Cross allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He'd walked out of Riverside City Medical Center 3 hours ago, with nothing but a box of personal belongings and his daughter's hand in his. Now he was flying toward Washington, D.C., having just saved a man's life under conditions that would have been impossible for most surgeons. The universe had a strange sense of timing. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center appeared below them, its helipads lit like beacons in the descending dusk. The helicopter descended smoothly, and Daniel felt his ears pop as they lost altitude. A full trauma team waited on the helipad, along with what looked like a significant security contingent. This patient's condition might have stabilized, but his political importance apparently hadn't diminished. The moment the helicopter touched down, the side door slid open, and the trauma team moved in with practiced efficiency. Daniel gave them a rapid-fire briefing mechanism of injury, procedures performed, current status, ongoing concerns. The team leader, an Army colonel with graying temples and confident eyes, listened intently. "You performed a pericardial window in flight?" he asked. "Limited window. Yes, that's—" The colonel paused, seeming to search for the right word. "That's extraordinary, doctor. It was necessary." The patient was transferred to a gurney and wheeled rapidly toward the hospital entrance. The trauma team surrounded him like a protective formation, monitoring vitals, adjusting IV drips, calling out orders. Daniel stood on the helipad, suddenly aware of how exhausted he felt. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the familiar post-surgical fatigue. Lieutenant Hayes approached. "Dr. Cross, there are some people who'd like to speak with you. I need to get home to my daughter." "Understood, sir. This will only take a few minutes." Daniel followed Hayes through a maze of corridors to a conference room where several people waited. A 2-star general. 2 civilians in expensive suits who had government official written all over them, and Senator Marcus Thornton himself, his face drawn with worry. The senator stood immediately when Daniel entered. "Dr. Cross, they tell me you saved my son's life. I performed emergency treatment for cardiac tamponade. Your son will need continued care, but his prognosis is good." "In a helicopter. 1,500 feet in the air." "Yes, sir." Senator Thornton crossed the room and extended his hand. Daniel shook it, noting the man's firm grip and steady eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," the senator said quietly. "Andrew is my only child. If you hadn't been available, someone else would have done it." "No." The 2-star general stepped forward. "No one else could have done it, Dr. Cross. We had a list of 7 surgeons with the necessary qualifications. 6 were unavailable due to deployment, location, or medical status. You were the only one who met all the criteria and could be reached in time." Daniel absorbed this. "I was available because I was fired from my job this morning." The room went silent. One of the civilians cleared his throat. "We're aware of the circumstances surrounding your departure from Riverside City Medical Center. Are you? We've already been in contact with the hospital's administration." Daniel's exhaustion suddenly transformed into anger. He'd spent the last 3 hours proving exactly why his standards mattered, why safety couldn't be compromised, why equipment and protocols existed for a reason. And now they were telling him they'd been talking to the people who'd fired him. "Dr. Cross," Senator Thornton said carefully, "I understand there was a disagreement about medical equipment and safety protocols. That's one way to put it. The way you put it might be more accurate. I refused to use potentially defective equipment on patients. The hospital chose profit margins over safety. I objected. They terminated my employment." The general nodded slowly. "And 3 hours later, you performed emergency cardiac surgery in a helicopter because you were the only person in the country with the right combination of skills and availability. Do you see the irony, Doctor?" "I see a lot of things, General, including the exit, which I'd like to find so I can go home to my daughter." Senator Thornton held up a hand. "Please, Dr. Cross, just hear us out. 5 minutes." Daniel wanted to refuse. Wanted to walk out of this room in this building and get back to the simple problem of figuring out how to pay his mortgage without a job. But something in the senator's expression stopped him. This wasn't political maneuvering. This was a father who'd almost lost his son. 5 minutes, Daniel said. The senator gestured to a chair. Daniel remained standing. "Fine. Dr. Cross, the people in this room represent 3 different government agencies. We've spent the last hour discussing your qualifications, your background, and the events of today. We've also had a very interesting conversation with Melissa Grant at Riverside City Medical Center. I'm sure that was illuminating. She's been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into hospital safety protocols. Daniel blinked. What? One of the civilians spoke. Miss Grant terminated your employment based on your refusal to use equipment that was technically past its recommended replacement date. Our preliminary investigation suggests that 7 other staff members raised similar concerns over the past 18 months. All were pressured to drop the issue. 2 were terminated. The hospital administration engaged in a pattern of prioritizing cost reduction over patient safety, the general added. Your termination was the final straw that triggered federal scrutiny. Daniel sat down. Not because they asked, but because his legs suddenly felt unstable. We're recommending that Riverside City Medical Center undergo a complete safety audit, Senator Thornton continued. Their accreditation may be at risk. But more importantly, Dr. Cross, we want to talk about your future. My future involves finding a new job so I can feed my daughter. What if that job involved working with the Military Medical Command on a consulting basis, developing protocols for field surgery, training combat medics, providing specialized expertise when situations like today arise? Daniel looked at each of them in turn. You're offering me a job. We're offering you the opportunity to do what you do best, on your own terms, with the recognition and support you should have had all along. I left the military so I could be present for my daughter. This position would be based out of your home area. Occasional travel, but scheduled around your family needs. Compensation commensurate with your specialized skills. The general leaned forward. Dr. Cross, you have a unique combination of abilities. Combat trauma experience, surgical precision, the capacity to work under conditions that would break most physicians. That's not something we can train into people. That's something you either have or you don't. And today you proved you still have it. Daniel thought about Lily, waiting for him at home. Thought about his empty bank account and the mortgage payment due in 12 days. Thought about the stack of medical equipment incident reports he'd filed at Riverside City, each one ignored or dismissed. Thought about the feeling of saving a life under impossible circumstances. I want final say on safety protocols, Daniel said. No compromises, no cost-benefit analyses that put lives at risk. Done, the general said, immediately. And I want it in writing that my primary obligation is to my daughter. Family comes first, absolutely. And I want to review any equipment I'm expected to use. If it doesn't meet my standards, I don't use it. Senator Thornton smiled. Dr. Cross, I think you just described exactly why we want you. Daniel stood. I need to think about it, and I need to go home, of course. Lieutenant Hayes will arrange transportation. As Daniel turned to leave, the senator called after him. Dr. Cross, thank you for my son's life, and for reminding all of us what real standards look like. Daniel nodded once, then walked out. The car that took Daniel home was a black SUV with government plates and a driver who didn't make small talk. Daniel was grateful for the silence. His mind was too full for conversation. They pulled up to his house just after 9 p.m. The lights were on inside. Through the window, he could see Patricia and Lily sitting on the couch, a movie playing on the television. Thank you, Daniel said to the driver. Sir, I'm instructed to wait and ensure you're settled. That's not necessary. Orders, sir. Daniel didn't have the energy to argue. He climbed out of the SUV, his entire body aching with fatigue, and walked up to his front door. He didn't get the chance to knock. The door flew open and Lily launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist with enough force to nearly knock him backward. Daddy, you're home. Daniel knelt down, returning the hug with every ounce of strength he had left. Hey, Pumpkin, miss me? So much. Dr. Reeves said you were saving someone. Did you save them? Yeah, I did. Was it scary? Daniel pulled back slightly to look at his daughter's face. A little bit. Because you're a really good doctor. I try to be. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her eyes scanning Daniel's blood-stained clothes with professional assessment. You look like hell, Danny. Feel like it too. The patient? Stable and recovering at Walter Reed. And you? Daniel stood, every joint protesting. I'm okay, Trish. Thanks for staying with her. Anytime. Patricia squeezed his shoulder. I mean that. Anytime. After Patricia left, Daniel managed to shower and change into clean clothes before collapsing onto the couch. Lily immediately curled up next to him, her head on his chest. Daddy? Yeah, Pumpkin? Are you going to get a new job now? Maybe. Some people talk to me about working with the army again. Would you have to go away? No, I'd be here with you. I'd just help out when they really needed me. Lily was quiet for a moment. Like today? Like today. That seems like a good job. Daniel smiled, running his fingers through her hair. Yeah. It does. They sat in silence, the television playing some animated movie neither of them was really watching. Daniel felt his eyes growing heavy, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Daddy? Lily's voice was very small. I was proud of you today. Daniel's throat tightened. Thanks, Pumpkin. Those soldiers came and they were looking for you, and everyone was watching, and you just went and helped someone. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero, Lily. I'm just a doctor. Can't you be both? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. The next morning, Daniel's phone rang early. The number was unfamiliar, but he answered anyway. Dr. Cross, this is Melissa Grant. Daniel sat up in bed, fully awake. Miss Grant, I wanted to apologize for everything. I've been placed on administrative leave while the hospital undergoes investigation, and I've had a lot of time to think about the decisions I made. Okay, you were right. About the equipment. About the safety protocols. About all of it. I let budget concerns override patient care, and that was wrong. Daniel said nothing. I don't expect forgiveness, Melissa continued. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what you were trying to protect, and I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. Miss Grant, I appreciate the call, but the person you really need to apologize to is every patient who came through that ER while we were using substandard equipment. You're right. You're absolutely right. After they hung up, Daniel lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed with a text message from Lieutenant Hayes. At exactly 10 o'clock, a courier arrived with a thick envelope. Inside was a formal job offer from the Department of Defense, Medical Command Division. The salary made Daniel's eyes widen. The benefits package was comprehensive. The terms were everything he'd asked for. At the bottom, in handwritten ink, we need people who won't compromise. General Raymond Halston. Daniel sat at his kitchen table, the offer letter in front of him, and thought about the path that had led him here. Fired in the morning, recalled in the afternoon, offered a new future by evening. Life moved in strange circles. Lily wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. What's that? A job offer. The army one? Yeah. Are you going to take it? Daniel looked at his daughter, 7 years old, smart as a whip, resilient beyond her years. She'd already lost her mother. She deserved a father who was present, engaged, there when she needed him. But she also deserved a father who stood for something, who didn't compromise his principles, who showed her that doing the right thing mattered, even when it cost you everything. Yeah, Pumpkin, I think I am. Lily grinned. Good. Can I tell Emma at school that my dad works for the army? You can tell Emma whatever you want. 3 weeks later, Daniel Cross started his new position. His first assignment was developing improved protocols for field surgical teams operating in hostile environments. His second was training a new generation of combat medics at Fort Sam Houston. His third was testifying before a congressional committee about medical safety standards in civilian hospitals. Riverside City Medical Center underwent a complete restructuring. Melissa Grant resigned. New leadership was brought in. Equipment was replaced. Safety protocols were revised, and Dr. Patricia Reeves was promoted to Director of Emergency Medicine, with full authority over departmental standards. Daniel kept in touch with Senator Thornton's son, Andrew, who made a full recovery and returned to his position at the NSA. They met for coffee twice, two men bound together by a moment of crisis and skill. On a Saturday morning, 6 months later, Daniel was making pancakes when Lily asked him a question. "Daddy, do you like your job?" Daniel flipped a pancake, watching it arc through the air and land perfectly in the pan. "Because you get to help people?" "Because I get to help people the right way, on my own terms, without compromising what matters most." Daniel turned off the stove, plated the pancakes, and sat down across from his daughter. "You matter most. Always. But, after that, doing the right thing matters. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Lily poured syrup over her pancakes with the excessive enthusiasm of a 7-year-old. "I think that's good, Daddy." "Me too, Pumpkin. Me too." That afternoon, they went to the park, the same park where the helicopters had landed. Kids played on the swings. Dogs chased balls. Life continued its normal rhythm. Daniel sat on a bench, watching Lily climb the jungle gym, and thought about the day that had changed everything. He'd lost a job, found his principles, saved a life, and built something better from the wreckage. His phone buzzed. A text from General Halston. "New situation developing. Might need your expertise next week. Family schedule permitting?" Daniel looked at Lily, laughing as she hung upside down from the monkey bars. He typed back, "Family schedule always comes first. But after that, I'm available." The response came immediately. "That's exactly why we need you." Daniel pocketed his phone and called to his daughter. "Lily, not so high." "I'm fine, Daddy." "I know you are, Pumpkin. But humor your old man anyway." She climbed down a few rungs, then resumed playing. Daniel leaned back on the bench, face turned toward the sun, and smiled. He'd been fired for refusing to compromise, and he'd been rewarded for standing firm. Sometimes the universe got it right.